Hi everyone and welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to be going over how I did this white tiger portrait with watercolour pencils. The watercolour pencils are by Caran D'Ache, they're the Museum Aquarelle, and the paper that I'm using is rowney Aquafine hot-pressed paper. The painting was A3 in size and my reference photos are from Unsplash, I believe. I'm not sure if the background was from Pixabay, but I'll put links in the description below. Okay, so I also just really wanted to quickly say I apologise for the quality of the video. It was a little bit darker and I have fixed it kind of in the future videos, so the future videos should be a lot more true to real life. So I am sorry that the quality is kind of a little bit off. But hopefully you can still see what I'm doing and hopefully it makes sense. Please let me know if you like this video style or if you prefer it when I was a little bit more close up and personal to the piece. But anyway, I'll just jump into it. So the colours that I used in this were mostly the sepia 10%, dark flesh 50%, and a couple others. I'll just grab those. Yeah, so I used the saffron, I believe I used the ultramarine violet, a little bit of light cobalt blue, brown olive brown, yellow ochre, brown ochre, light flesh 10%, violet pink, burnt sienna 50%, terracotta, burnt ochre, cinnamon chestnut, brown, raw umber, castle earth, a little bit of umber, French grey, slate grey, dark flesh 50% and sepia 10%, as well as steel grey obviously, and black and white. So I've mostly kind of started with the sepia 10%. It's a really nice kind of warm grey, it's quite light, but it created a really nice base for the white fur on the tiger. And white fur has kind of been my kryptonite for quite a few years, so this is quite a challenge to do, but I think I've kind of overcome the challenges and white fur is absolutely one of my favourite colours to render, just because there's so many different colours that go into white fur, and hopefully as you can see on the tiger's face, it's actually really dark compared to the white of the paper. So that's because white isn't really white. Hopefully you can see that kind of the background really influences the colours that go into the white fur of an animal. So that's why there's lots of kind of light orangey colours, a little bit of green, and that's just because the colours in the background are completely bouncing off the white fur, and that's why you're getting like little bits of colour coming through. Using colour also really helps to create depth in white fur, so using lots of different colours really helps to create depth and kind of a 3D realistic effect. So that's why I like to kind of mix lots of different colours together for the white fur. And then hopefully, as you can see, I did leave the stripes kind of till last, so I worked on section by section as I normally do. And then once I got the white fur down, I was quite happy with it, I then went over and did the stripes. So the stripes I did with, I think it was slate grey and raw umber, and then wet those down and then did black over the top. And that was just to again create a nice deep black, because black on its own can look quite flat, so I like to mix other colours in before then using the black. But the reason that I did the white first is because I'm using water soluble colour pencils, and if I started with the black and then I accidentally kind of pushed the black stripe into the white, it would create a lot more of a messy, kind of harshly blended effect. So it was a lot easier to kind of blend all the white fur together, because if that went into a black stripe, it was a lot easier to cover up than if the black went into the white. So again, paying close attention to my reference photo, pulling a lot of kind of umbers and brown ochre into like kind of chesty part. I think I used a lot of pure umber, olive brown, maybe even a little bit of yellow ochre in that part, and that is just to kind of get that greeny kind of effect on the fluffy part of the neck. And then again mapping out those stripes as well. And then here, hopefully you can see, I'm kind of drawing out the area of the fur, but I'm leaving kind of white dots, if you like, and that is where the light was going to shine through, because on the reference photo there was lots of kind of bits where the leaves were shadowing the cat, and then there was bits where the light was completely coming through. They were quite overexposed, very bright, so I really wanted the white of the paper to show through for those parts. So to do that, I kind of used the sepia 10%, mapped out where they'd be, and then covered the rest of the area. And then I coloured it as normal using lots of greys. There's a sepia 50%, a French grey, and kind of shadowing areas of the neck to really give it a nice shape. And I did actually find that this part was quite dark, so I went over it with a white pencil, the White Museum Aquarelle. Just did a nice light wash over that area just to lighten it up a little bit. Something else that I really found worked quite well for this piece, especially kind of where the white highlight was really shining through, was I took the Light Flesh 10% as well as a little bit of apricot, and then just kind of on the edges where the light meets the shadow, I just put a little light flesh there, and it really kind of created like a nice sunburst effect where the lighting was hitting the shadow, and I thought that was really nice and effective for this piece. So here, as you can see on the shoulder, I did use a lot of dark flesh 50%, a little bit of umber to kind of give it a nice golden effect. I also used the light flesh and then put white over the top, so it really softened down all those colours, because I've said it before, but these pencils can be very pigmented, very bold and bright once you've wetted them down compared to when you use them dry. So to kind of tone that back down, make it a little bit softer, sometimes I'll just shove a load of white on top of that, so when I blend it, it softens it right back down. And you can't really tell too much, but I am kind of drawing and adding little bits of detail and doing that in the direction of the fur constantly, especially on the top layers where it's not going to be wetted down. I am just shading and colouring in the direction of the fur, and that will really kind of give the illusion of fur and depth. And then kind of towards the left side of this big cat, the shadows started to get a little bit cooler toned, so I started using a little bit more of greys, like slate grey, steel grey, and a little bit of light cobalt blue, just to the left side, kind of where the tiger's spine is. And that really created a really nice warm versus cool juxtaposition, which I really love in all of my pieces. I definitely try and use that if I can. And for this piece as well, I found it really useful to work in sections. I always usually do work in sections, but for this piece in particular, I like to working in the sections because I could kind of focus on where the stripes would be. I find stripes quite difficult sometimes. It kind of makes my eyes go a little bit funny looking at all the lines, and I can really kind of lose my place in a piece. So by breaking it down into like 4 or 5 stripes in one section, it meant that I could really focus on the placement of each stripe to keep it accurate to the photo. And it didn't matter too much if I went out with 1 or 2 stripes, because it didn't really matter because it wasn't anybody's pet tiger, so if I was going out on a stripe, nobody would really notice or mind. But yeah, I did find it helpful, and I did stay accurate probably about 90% of the time. I think there was 1 stripe that might have been out. But yeah, I found that breaking it down into those sections definitely helped. I found that the burnt sienna as well was a really beautiful colour to work on this piece because it's kind of a pinky brown colour, so it created a really nice warm kind of shadowy area, and it worked really well with all the golden tones that I was trying to put into this piece. But it was also very soft and subtle, so I absolutely loved that colour in most of my pieces, but it was such a beautiful colour to work with on this piece in particular. And again, just kind of mapping out all the white bits of the fur, leaving out the stripes, and just putting the colour placement down. And again, blending with water, making sure the brush is damp so it's not too wet, but it is a little bit damp so it will blend the colour. And for the first couple of layers, I always try and kind of just get the colour down. I'm not really paying too much attention to the detail, because once it's blended, all the detail will kind of be lost anyway. So for the first couple of layers, I'm just kind of putting the colours down, trying to create a little bit of shadow, and making sure those are all really nice, and then once it's dry, going over again with pencils and not blending it this time, so then I can focus on the details of the fur. I also took a little bit of a white pencil, and obviously because the camera is quite far away you can't really see, but I took the white pencil and I also took the black, and I kind of created little like scratches or fur strokes out of each stripe. So I'd take the black pencil and push that ever so lightly into the white. It was kind of like scribbling along the lines, and then I'd take the white pencil and push that into the black stripe as well, just so you can kind of get the illusion of fur, because the stripes weren't completely kind of harsh edged and all that jazz. They did have like a texture to them, so I tried to do that with the black and white pencil. And you might see me as well kind of working on a stripe, so using the raw umber. I think I also used Castle Earth on the left side, and I was just kind of marking those down, then blending it, and then waiting for those to dry, and then going back over it with black. So if I'm kind of starting on one area and then go back to stripes in another area, I'm basically just adding another layer of colour on top of it once it's dry. I definitely started to find kind of a nice rhythm with this piece by working in the sections. I'd wait for one piece to dry, start the stripes in another, wait for those to dry, go back to the other side, do some detailing, and then go back to the stripe, and kind of just repeated that process throughout the piece. And it was so nice. It was such a pleasure to paint this tiger. And then just adding kind of a little bit of blend in there on the end. And then again on the tail, doing exactly the same thing as I've done before, just kind of adding a little bit of colour and then waiting for it to dry. The tail I found quite difficult, I guess, because it was a lot kind of closer together, the stripes were a little bit thicker, but I was paying close attention to my reference photo, just completely drawing what I saw, and I think it worked together really nicely. And as you can see, they're marking out the stripes. So for the leg, I did actually do a different technique with the stripes. So I took the terracotta, burnt sienna, and brown, and that was my base for the tail stripes. So hopefully you can see now kind of at the base of the tail, those stripes are very kind of brown, kind of rustic colour. So because I did that because on the kind of leg and tail portion, the light was really shining through and it created kind of a sun bleached black effect. So I wanted to keep the tail kind of a nice warm brown base, and then I could kind of leave some of that showing for the highlights on the tail, and it just created a really lovely highlight effect. And then I obviously did some shading with the black, but it meant that I could get this really nice rich brown, and kept the golden kind of tail highlights. And then again, just add in the white and then the black onto the tail. So I guess one tip that I would say for doing white fur is don't be afraid to put that colour down. It can look really daunting. I've definitely worried about making it too muddy sometimes, but just put it down really nice and kind of light, and then slowly build on it. But if you don't put enough colour down, it can look quite flat, and you're just not going to get the nice kind of 3D fur effect that you would like if you added more colour to it. So I definitely recommend just putting the colour down. Don't be afraid to do what you see. Sometimes it helps to take your reference photo out of the background, put it on a completely kind of blank white slate, and then you can really see how the colours stand out against that white background. So hopefully it'll help you pick out your colours a little bit better. But hopefully from this video you can see that the white isn't pure white. There's lots of different colours in there. It's completely dark compared to the white of the paper, so don't be afraid if you think it's looking a bit too dark. You're probably on the right track, so don't worry too much. If you are unhappy with how it's going and you do use water soluble coloured pencils, I'd definitely take the white from the museum aquarelle, just go over the area and then wet it down, and that should really soften and lighten up the piece a little bit. And the beauty of the water soluble coloured pencils as well is they do layer really nicely. I find especially on the daily rowney Aquafine hot press paper, they can take quite a lot of layers. So I can, if I feel like I need to lighten an area up, I just lighten it up, and then I can work on it for another good 2 or 3 layers quite nicely. And it'll turn out okay. I will say that I don't find you need too many layers, or at least the layering process is quite different compared to dry colour pencil, because you kind of lay down a lot of colours and then blend them together. So in my mind that is one layer, whereas obviously kind of some people might view each layer as each colour you've put down. So in my mind it only takes about 3 or 4 layers, but that's actually a lot of colours that go into each layer. And then you can see here, hopefully on the tiger leg, that I'm just using that black to really darken up the stripes on the leg, and then using the white again to add little bits of highlights and little bits of kind of sticky out fur bits to really create a nice texture. And we're coming up to my favourite part, was the little toes, and adding kind of the little heel of the foot. It was so nice to do, to get those really nice warm colours down, and it just really pulled the piece together. I think as I started to get closer to the end, I could see how it was coming along, and I was so pleased with how it looked so far. And for the toes, I did use the burnt sienna and a little bit of terracotta, but also a lot of brown went into that part as well as raw umber and the sepia 10%. And the sepia 10% just kind of toned it down, so it wasn't super kind of vibrant and bright pink. It had a much more natural colour to it. But that's the finished piece. Hopefully you liked it. I really hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. Please like, comment and subscribe. I really appreciate it. It really helps me out a lot. And I'd love to hear what you'd like to see in the next video, so please let me know if you have any suggestions. Drop them in the comments below. And I'll see you for the next one. Goodbye.